want you to know, if you hear the AC in the back of this, it's because it's hot in here. But you probably can't. You probably only can hear my voice. So what's going on, you guys? So this is another check off the reaction request list. And one of them out of the three, I want to say the three that you guys, well, not you guys, but the Sakurai clan has put on here is, I think it was three separate videos about Animorphs. A three-part series that Zom had sent, and what the crazy thing about it is, while I vaguely remember Animorphs, because I rarely really watched it as a kid, because as a kid I couldn't really get that solely into it. All I knew was that it was teenagers that could transform into animals and disguise themselves, and have them be going in these different situations where they were, you know, able to just morph into these animals and do things. And I kind of understood the premise, but not all the way. And I wish they had continued the series so that way a lot more people would get into Animorphs, including me. And also, this also had brung to me like a very memory that I have in the back of my head was that when I was a kid and Animorphs was around, we had a book drive, so sort of a like a book, you know them scholastic like book events that they could, that they would have at the schools back in the day, and you were required to at least get one book. Well, the school that I went to in elementary school that I went to, um, they had did that, and I wasn't really interested in reading all that much. But then I saw this one book, and it was a book that was talking about the event that transpired to Animorphs. Um, and the crazy thing is, I still have this book. Um, this book right here. If you guys see this, this is a very old book. The end, the Andalite Chronicles. Before the Animorphs, there was Elfangor. It's by Scholastic. And it basically says on the back, if y'all can read this, pause if you can read it. Um, his name is Elfangor Cernurial Shamtul, an Andalite war prince, the one who gave 5 young humans the ability to morph into any animal they touch. They are still out there, fighting an evil so powerful there isn't a moment that goes by when they can actually feel safe. Their story continues, but this is how it all began. The story that came before the Animorphs. And I wanted to talk. I wanted just to briefly mention that because I have yet to read this book. I've yet to read this book, and yet after all these years, I still have it. Even now, I'm still trying to figure out a reason as to why I'm still keeping it. But I'd like to think that at some point in time, I'll read it and I'll maybe I'll talk about it in like a live stream or a video with you guys. Especially the fact that you guys sent me, uh um Zom sent me these 3 videos talking about the Animorphs. So without further ado, let's just jump right into this video. This video is by Lord Ravenscraft. Shout out to him. I'm gonna put the original video in the description below. This is the first video that Zom had sent for reaction request. It's called Animorphs: The Gray Morality of 90s YA's Most Tragic Characters. Okay.
I saw Jake in the hallway at school. I pretended not to notice him. I saw Rachel too. She had a dark look in her eyes, like she hadn't slept, like something was really wrong. Even Cassie seemed grim. It had gotten to all of us. It's not so easy to just forget terror. It's not easy to just ignore the memory of your leg being ripped off, of being dismembered, torn apart. It was too much. This wasn't how life was supposed to be.
Damn.
Let's talk about Animorphs. Animorphs is a serialized collection of about 64 books published in the late 90s by Scholastic and... You know what? Never mind. You have Wikipedia. It's fine. If you've heard about Animorphs at all, it's either because you read it in the 90s and have not shut up about it since, or you're one of the people who's had to listen to us. And now that a movie's been announced, you want to know what the fuss is about. Thing is, summarizing this...
Wait, hold on. There's a movie that's gonna be coming out about Animorphs? Hold on. Wait. Hold on. Pause. I didn't know this. There's gonna be a movie coming out? When? When? Apparently this was mentioned 10 months ago? They probably still working on it. I don't know. I haven't heard any news about it.
This book series is challenging. It came out around the same time as the Goosebumps series, and like Goosebumps, new books were published at a cadence of around once a month.
He's right, it did.
Unlike Goosebumps, Animorphs told a continuous story with the same characters and roughly the same setting every single book. They also cycled out their narrator POV characters. Jake narrates the first book, Rachel the second, Tobias the third, and so on, which led to months-long gaps for a character's story to pay off because it wasn't their turn to tell a story yet. This also necessarily meant that there were going to be a lot of filler books with some pretty weird plot lines. So, on the one hand, the basic premise is simple. An alien named Elfangor gives 5 children, Jake, Rachel, Cassie, Tobias, and Marco, the ability to morph into any animal they can touch for up to 2 hours. The Andalites communicate using telepathy, a power that the kids pick up whenever they're in morph, and they eventually join forces with another Andalite named Axe. They use this power to fight an evil race of alien slugs called the Yeerks, who squirm into people's ears, wrap themselves around their brains, and take over their bodies, turning them into what they call controllers. There's the good guy aliens called the Andalites who look like this, except
now see, I didn't remember much about the premise of the story, but I'm glad he's touching bases on it. I am glad he's touching bases on it.
Over their bodies, turning them into what they call controllers. There's the good guy aliens called the Andalites who look like this, except that's not true at all. Everything you believe about Andalites is a lie. They're the bad guy aliens called the Hork-Bajir and Taxons who look like this, and their biggest bad of all is the only Andalite controller called Visser 3, Visser being a rank, not a name. A lot of people get confused on that. Otherwise, it's a pretty simple good and evil kids kind of Power Rangers story, right? Yeah, except for the time travel. And Atlantis. And the androids?
Say what?
And God. I kind of forgot about God. Yeah, several plot lines involve a character called the Elemist, who's kind of like an immortal god, except he used to be like a bird creature from a planet with flying crystals instead of continents, and this is as good a time as any to introduce my I don't really have time to get into it right now counter. Anytime we come across a plot point that's just too complicated to explain right now, I'm gonna throw it up on the board. On June 18th, 2020, it was finally announced that Animorphs will be getting its own blockbuster Hollywood big-budget movie adaptation from Scholastic Entertainment and Picture Start, completely ruining the original script I had for this video. Author K.A. Applegate, as well as Michael Grant, her husband, co-author, and professional hype man, announced the move on Twitter, where they usually spend their time being absolute legends. Like, to briefly give you a rundown of what makes these two so awesome, in no particular order. When the Animorphs series ended on a cliffhanger, on the precipice of another war, a lot of fans felt that ending was unsatisfying and complained. To which K.A. Applegate responded in an essay, "Too fucking bad! Wars don't have happy endings, lives get ruined, and if you don't like it, maybe keep that in mind the next time you step into a voting booth."
Don't boo.
Wow.
Vote.
She wrote this in June of 2001. So, fun fact, that bit just pulled the audio cable out of my microphone and I didn't figure it out for about 2 hours. So, I just lost all that footage and that's the take you're getting. In December of 2019, just a couple days after J.K. Rowling was getting all turfy on Twitter for not the last time, Catherine Applegate tweeted out in support of the trans community, which includes her own daughter, and solicited donations for some trans-led charities just a couple of days before Christmas. Meanwhile, the day that the movie was officially announced, Michael Grant spent some time on Twitter retweeting people calling for this kids movie to be gory, dunking on the 90s adaptation on Nickelodeon, and committing 100% to absolutely no whitewashing of their characters. To be clear, Grant would not commit to what age the kids would be yet, but promised that they weren't going to accidentally write out the brown kids. If their goal was to convince studios that they were going to make a politically safe, watered-down version of their movie that would be palatable to general audiences, they utterly failed. These two are uncompromising radicals who have spent their entire lives speaking out against war, bigotry, and hate. Now, if you didn't read Animorphs as a kid, your only familiarity might be through Tumblr posts like this or articles like this that talk about all the crazy and dark things that happen in the series. Like the time that an ant gained the ability to morph into a human and being completely unable to handle the sensory overload, just screamed until it died.
Wow.
Or the time that a pacifist android briefly rewrote its own programming to allow it to commit acts of violence, only to be horrified by what it had done, and being an android, incapable of forgetting. But
wow.
All of these are just moments. I mean, they're good moments, don't get me wrong, but if that's all Animorphs had to offer, then it's just the young adult equivalent of robot shark versus giant alien octopus. Instead, for this video, I want to go a little bit deeper on the series. I want to introduce you to the main characters and explain why their stories are still worth telling all these years later. So let's get started with Part 1. Jake the Yerk Killer. Media for Kids generally needs to simplify its plots or characters for a younger audience, and one of the popular ways to do that throughout the 80s and 90s was to reduce a character down to a single personality trait, often expressible as even just one word.
Raphael is cool, but rude. Give me a break. Michelangelo is a party dude.
You know, you'd get your nerd, you'd get your hothead, you'd get your comedian, but every group had to have the leader. This is the person who is arbitrarily dubbed in charge. Their plot usually revolves around the burden of leadership, and they usually make the right call in the end. These are your Leonardos, your Optimus Primes, your any given Red Ranger, your Freds. In Animorphs, Jake is the leader. Or as Marco puts it in Animorphs number 1, "Yes, Jake, you are our leader. You are the one who can bring us all together and help us defeat the controllers. We have the ability to be much more than we are, to have the stealth of a cat and the eyes of eagles and the sense of smell of a dog and the speed of a horse or a cheetah. We're going to need it all if we have any hope of holding out against the controllers." I wanted it not to be true. I wanted none of it to be true. But I knew that it was. Or as the TV show puts it,
"Since when am I the leader?"
You just are.
there's a reason we don't talk about you. So Jake isn't super thrilled about being the leader type, which is ironically a key trait of being the leader type. When they pick up Axe later on, and we will come back to him, Axe refers to him as Prince Jake, which is sort of like a captain in the Andalite military. Now Jake asks him to stop calling him Prince for what seem like obvious reasons. Prince has a very different connotation in human cultures.
Yeah.
But over time it becomes also clear that he just simply doesn't feel like he deserves the responsibility of a military leader. I would be very afraid to meet the teenager that does. We'll get to you. Not that Jake doesn't occasionally give us reason to be afraid of him. Jake lives with his brother Tom, who we learn very early on has a yerk in his head. This sets up sort of a invasion of the body snatchers style paranoia that permeates the entire series. The kids can't speak too loudly at school, and they have to speak in code whenever they use the house phone. By the way, I know I mentioned that Animorphs has a lot of really bizarre and outlandish elements in it, so a house phone in the 90s was a phone that lived inside your house. So Jake living with his brother Tom creates an existential problem for the group if Tom ever gets suspicious. But in book number 31, The Conspiracy, Tom and Jake both have to go out of town because a family member of theirs has died and they need to attend the funeral. Now, Yeerks need to leave their host's head every 3 days to feed, so being out of town for 4 days is obviously deadly to Tom's Yeerk. But their father isn't infested, and he will not allow the kids to stay home. So Tom either has to assassinate or infest Jake's father. Jake can't allow this to happen for a number of reasons, because having 2 Yeerks in the house would make it harder for him to sneak out, but also he's emotionally invested in keeping his family free. He already can't stand that Tom is infested, and allowing his father to be taken, or worse, killed, would be unacceptable to him. So in order to prevent this, Jake starts forcing the team to do things they would never do otherwise, like ordering Axe to torture someone. To distract the Yeerks from his father, Jake orders the team to kidnap their vice principal Chapman, who is also a known controller. Vice principals make easy bad guys for kids. What do you want? This was the 90s.
Hey, what is going on here?
They kidnap their vice principal, tie him up in the middle of nowhere, and insinuate that he's going to be starved to death. Axe is, to put it mildly, uncomfortable with this. He's a warrior, not a torturer. Jake is making bad calls, forcing his friends to compromise in ways they never would otherwise, all because he has a personal connection to one Yeerk host. It's not until Marco steps in and figures out a pragmatic way to keep Tom home by breaking his leg that Jake manages to start seeing things clearly. From then on, he pledges to listen to Marco and be a better leader. It's a nice story. But Animorphs isn't a nice story. That's not how war works, and Animorphs is a...
Yeah, it doesn't sound nice. And now that he's explaining Animorphs, now I realize the reason why I didn't really watch as much is because the tone of this series was very serious. I was a cartoons kid. Like I was into cartoons. I was not into the sci-fi war horror when I was a kid. So yeah, shit, I wasn't even into Goosebumps. And Goosebumps was very heavy back in the 90s. It was very heavy. Along with this show, a lot of people loved Animals. A lot of people loved Are You Afraid of the Dark? A lot of people loved Goosebumps. A lot of people enjoyed those shows. So it's like, yeah.
Above all else, a war story. And teenagers forced to lead a war don't become paragons of moral virtue. I would have a hard time summarizing all of the harsh calls that Jake has to make over the entire series, but there's one that defines his character in the end. Towards the end of the series, the crew is in a battle aboard a Yeerk spaceship. If they can get control of the ship, then they stand a fighting chance, but along the way they discover a pool filled with 17,000 Yeerk slugs with no host. They're just helpless slugs swimming in a pool. No threat. But they could be later. This is their chance to take out 17,000 enemies before they become a problem, and they don't know if they're going to win this battle. So Jake gives the order. Flush them. What Jake did is genocide. There's no ambiguity, there's no technicality, and the book is very clear to even call it a war crime. Jake orders 17,000 helpless and sentient beings flushed into the void of space, and he has to live with that for the rest of his life. Jake is 16. You know how when you watch Game of Thrones for the first time...
Now see, listen. I'm gonna say this right now. Although that is a war crime, and he's right, that is a war crime. If he didn't do it, those thousands of slugs would have taken over thousands of human hosts, and there would be honestly no way to stop them. Thousands upon thousands, like you just said, thousands upon thousands. So it's either let them stay there or get rid of them. It's one of the two. And I know some people don't want to hear that. The lesser of two evils. You either let these mother truckers stay here while they inevitably go to Earth, inhabit there, invade, take over bodies, hosts, and probably have them do unspeakable things to other people, infect other people, or you just kill them. Kill them before they do anything. Kill before it even gets to that point. As a 32-year-old man, I'd be like, yeah, get rid of them. Get rid of them. Flush them. Yep.
Time, and you sort of think you know how it's going to go, but then the good and honorable Ned Stark gets his head cut off in the first season because he was too naive to see the evil plan coming, and you go, oh, this isn't that kind of show. Animorphs is a bit like that. You want to believe that the good guys are good, the bad guys are bad, and you can win by just punching hard enough. But that's not really how it works. Animorphs forces the reader to confront the idea of what's right in a war, what victory even means, and how to live with yourself when it's over. Jake doesn't walk away from the war a hero. We empathize with him and we root for him a lot of the time, but by the end, he's been so transformed by the choices he has to make that he's essentially unrecognizable. We see in real time how war corrupts even good people, arguably even turning them into the villains by the end. Oh, am I saying that K.A. Applegate wrote a better version of the Mad Queen Daenerys storyline decades before Gerb Martin ever finished his, if he does at all? Yeah, I think I am. Part 2. Rachel, Warrior Princess. Rachel's the pretty one. The books mention this, like, a lot, and if this were any other series, her characterization might end there. She's the Kimberly type, who loves shopping, is great at gymnastics, and even after a fight, somehow manages to never have a hair out of place. She's also Jake's cousin, for what it's worth. But she changes when she gets involved in the war. For everyone else, fighting in a war is understandably a burden. It's exhausting, it's traumatic. But from the beginning, Rachel is the most gung-ho about facing that challenge. She's the first to sign up for a fight. She's the least fazed by the violence. She needs very little convincing to get on board with any mission. For example, in Rachel's first narrated book, and the second book of the series, she has to morph a cat to sneak into the home of Vice Principal Chapman. Vice Principal Chapman is a known high-ranking controller, and his daughter Melissa is one of Rachel's best friends. As Rachel is infiltrating the Chapman house, she sees how coldly Chapman treats his daughter. And why should he have any affection for her? The yerk in his head doesn't care about human progeny, only the mission. Except the little girl doesn't know that. All she sees are what used to be loving parents who now no longer give her the time of day. They're effectively abandoning her in her own home, and she's too young to figure out why.
Wow.
Not that there's ever really an age where you would guess alien slugs have taken over someone's brain, unless you grew up on this series. Throughout the story, we learn that Chapman actually volunteered to be a host in exchange for keeping his daughter free. At least for a while. He loves her enough to sacrifice control over even his own body, but as a result, he's physically unable to even say the words. Rachel comes across Melissa crying in her bedroom, unable to figure out why her parents seem to not love her anymore. Now, Rachel's running out of time. If she stays more than 2 hours and more, if she's going to be trapped in the form of a cat, but she risks it so that she can cuddle up with Melissa just to spend a few moments comforting a crying girl. When she finally gets out, she tells Cassie, "I decided that I don't care what it takes or how many risks I have to run. I don't care what happens to me. I hate these yerks. I hate them. I hate them. And I will find a way to stop them." It's a good motivation. And it never comes up again. Because that's not really why she signed up for this war. And in fact, in chapter 3 of this book, before all of that heart-wrenching stuff with Chapman's daughter, she gets to an argument with Marco about whether or not they should proceed. She thinks they should. Rachel doesn't show a moment's hesitation. No one needs to talk her into it. Her catchphrase throughout the entire series is, "Let's do it," because she doesn't know anything else. She can't not do it. Over time, she becomes addicted to the adrenaline rush of combat. And I mean literally addicted. She openly acknowledges it in book number 27, The Exposed, when she says, "This is why we fight. And to be honest, I like a good fight. The adrenaline spike of battle, the rush, the challenge. And now that I've admitted that, I'll admit something else. Lately, it's been scaring me that I like it, that I look forward to it so much. And I'm afraid that if I keep giving in to the urge, sooner or later I'll forget how to do anything else. Nowhere is this more drawn into focus than in the David trilogy. The David trilogy is arguably one of the best, most emotionally devastating stories of the entire series. Wait, no, that's not arguable at all. Like, if you don't think the David trilogy is one of the best stories, like, what is on your list? When they got sent back to dinosaur times? When Starfish Rachel gets split into a good and evil twin? Alternamorphs? Are you a fan of Alternamorphs?
I've never even heard of that. I've never even heard of that book.
It's also one of the hardest to talk about. In the trio of books, 20, 21, and 22, a kid named David discovers the morphing cube. It's the box that allows Andalites to give other people the ability to morph. This instantly makes him Yeerk's most wanted. His parents are immediately made into controllers, his home is destroyed, and the team has no choice but to make him into an Animorph. But David's a shit. David uses his powers to steal things, he almost immediately threatens to turn on the Animorphs as soon as things get tough, and he eventually escalates to the point of killing a red-tailed hawk that everyone on the team, including David, believes is Tobias. At the end of the second book in the trilogy, just before he confronts David in a mall, Jake gives Axe an order. Get Rachel. If David's killed Tobias, we may have to do a terrible thing too. Get Rachel. Throughout the third book in the trilogy, Rachel has to wrestle with why Jake, her cousin, who's known her for years, turned to her first when he thought they might need to kill someone. Not a controller, not an enemy combatant, a Yeerk-free human teenager, and a former ally. Jake didn't ask for backup. He didn't say get the team. He said, get Rachel. Does he just see her as an unstable weapon?
Probably because he knew that she's about that life. When somebody openly requests a specific person to do something, it's because they have confidence that they're going to get the job done. They're going to do what needs to be done without any hesitation, without any remorse, without any like afterthought. It's not that he knew that she'd be terrible, like as easy enough to do it. It's more so the fact that like he knows that she's going to do it because there's no convincing to her of why it needs to happen. This person did that. That person did this. It's time to go into action. So yeah, that I think that's what it is.
A cold-blooded killer? A sick, twisted maniac who wouldn't think twice about snuffing out a troubled teenager who just lost his friends, his parents, and his home? Even if he does, Rachel concludes he's right. I knew Jake had picked the right person. See, I cared for Tobias. I don't think I even knew how much I cared till right then. But if David had killed him, I would have revenge. I would make Tobias's murderer pay. Don't worry. She didn't kill him. Instead, they tricked David into morphing a rat, locked him in a small box, and kept him there for 2 hours until he was trapped in rat morph forever. Then they abandoned him on a small deserted island just off the coast. And every once in a while, beachgoers swear they can hear someone screaming, begging in the distance. And the book just ends there. Like, that's it. That's the David trilogy. Who's got next? Part 3. Tobias Bird Boy. Tobias is quite possibly one of the most tragic characters in all of Animorphs, which I...
Hold up! Damn! Holy crap! That's... Jesus! Wow!
I know is a high bar, but I admit my knowledge of Tobias is a little bit lacking, at least in comparison to Zachary Vaudo. In the 2017 fan-made and Applegate-approved audiobook of Megamorphs #1, Zach played Tobias, because he's a boss. So let me see if I can get him on the phone. Hey Zach, you got a minute to talk about...
God damn it, Eric. Animorphs again?
This day and every day, man. I need some help talking about Tobias. You want to tag in?
Thought you'd never ask. My name is Zach. I can't tell you my last name because Eric already did that. I can tell you about Tobias, though, and how he is the prime example of purpose and cost in this series. The first time that Jake tells us about Tobias, it's about the time that he made some bullies stop giving him a swirly in the school toilet. In fact, Jake doesn't even consider Tobias a true friend at this point. His exact words were, "I told the two creeps to step off, and ever since then, Tobias figured I was his friend." So the story of 5 friends getting alien powers is actually the story of 4 friends and the one weird bully magnet that they just let tag along. And that was Tobias's life up until he became an Animorph. He was just kinda there, never actively wanted, shuffled back and forth across the country between his aunt and his uncle, siblings of his estranged mother, who abused and neglected him in a constant cycle. He was never around long enough to make friends, which is why Jake doesn't have that attachment. Tobias even has a crush on Rachel long before these books, but he never acted on it, which is outstandingly relatable, and probably why I connected to Tobias so much. Damn it, Eric.
Wow.
In spite of this, Tobias is a dreamer, detached from humanity, but looking for more in life. And he found it. He was the first to see Elfangor's ship in the sky, the first to engage with him when he landed, and the last to leave Elfangor's side before the Yeerks arrived. He's also the first to acquire and morph an animal, his uncle's cat, which he shows Jake the morning after getting their powers. He fully embraces the freedom of morphing, particularly the red-tailed hawk. All of the kids like flying, but Tobias loves it, and he tells the reader this every chance he gets. Say the word thermals in public to spot an Animorphs fan in the wild. It's kind of our code word. Being an Animorph, fighting the Yeerks, making Elfangor's death mean something, this is the something more that Tobias needed, and he finally found it. So naturally, the series rips it away from him in the very first book. After their first attempt to strike at the Yeerks, Tobias finds himself pinned down and hides while the others escape, which means that Tobias doesn't have the chance to morph out of his battle morph, the Hawk, for more than 2 hours. Because of this, he loses the ability to morph, and the ability to return to human form. The Andalites have a word for this, Nothlit. Tobias is now, by default, a red-tailed hawk. The others continue to treat Tobias as one of the group regardless, but there's a gallows humor to it. Nicknames like Bird Boy, Marco's ill-thought-out jokes about his condition. At first, Tobias lives in Jake's attic and eats leftovers that Jake sneaks for him, trying to hold on to some semblance of humanity, while highly aware of the disconnect. When Jake and Marco go to play video games, for example, Tobias takes note. "It's kind of a shame," he says. "With my eyesight and the reaction time I have, I could probably be major competition in Doom. But joysticks and control pads aren't made for talons." The strain from this loss and depression is made worse by the instincts of the hawk, because that's the fun part about morphing, you get the whole animal. The hawk brain is constantly fighting back to run on instinct, do what hawks do, and eventually, Tobias kills and eats his first prey before he gets a chance to process it. And he snaps at this point. He goes on a suicide run through the mall. He tries to dive bomb a glass door to snap himself out of it. He plows through stores and people. He panics the food court. He tries to escape through the skylight, which he only manages to do because Marco chucks a baseball at it and breaks it. Tobias doesn't even know if he would have stopped before ramming the glass, but at that point, he doesn't care. Tobias has lost himself entirely to the hawk. For a few days, he forgets what it means to be Tobias entirely. He flies, he hunts, seeks out another hawk, until he sees a human being chased by a Hork-Bajir controller in the woods. For a brief second, he loses himself in the moment of predator-prey, before the sight of the Hork-Bajir chasing the person floods his brain with human memories, human connections, and his purpose of fighting in this war. The thing that reigns supreme for Tobias over all, humanity and Hawk, is that sense of purpose. And it brings him back to the Animorphs, acting as their eye in the sky for missions and reconnaissance. He stops trying to be human. He lives in the woods, develops a hunting pattern. He experiences the freedom of being a hawk, while also not giving up his true nature entirely, staying connected with the Animorphs. He is truly now the Bird Boy, existing as both. And the craziest part, everything that I just said, that all goes down by book 3. 3 out of like 60. For the rest of the series, Tobias continues to stay true to that purpose, the watchtower to the Animorphs Team Arrow, still wrestling with the notion that he's lost humanity despite his split life. Even with his purpose, and personal acceptance of the situation, he never fully gets over the idea that he doesn't belong truly as human or as Hawk. No surprise that out of all the Animorphs, Tobias is the poster child of the LGBTQ+ community, despite none of the Animorphs being explicitly named as such. Though Catherine and Michael actively support fans reading it the way that makes sense to them. The 90s were a tough sell for that in the young adult market. Throughout the rest of the series, he discovers some escaped Hork-Bajir and helps get them to freedom, hiding them away from the Yeerks where they can't be found, helping them build a free Hork-Bajir resistance colony, and even becomes the namesake for the first Hork-Bajir born out of captivity. He gets his morphing powers back, thanks to the Ellimist. He acquires his own DNA from before he got the morphing power, thanks to some Ellimist time travel fuckery, where he also tells his past self to get the group to go through the construction site to make sure that everything happens this way. How is that for some Terminator time loop? By the way, all three of those things, that's also just one book. He discovers that his sense of purpose and bond to Elfangor is a whole lot deeper than he realized, because Elfangor is Tobias' father. Yep, more Ellimist stuff. Tobias was always destined for this, whether Elfangor or Tobias knew it or wanted it, and there is so much more that Tobias goes through in this series. He even kills Hitler. No, really, book goes nuts with time travel stuff. Over the series, he bonds with Rachel. A lot. When Tobias did his suicide run in the mall, he calls out to Rachel, who is there because it's Rachel and it's a mall, that he's lost himself. Do you know what she tells him? As long as you have me and the others, you aren't lost, Tobias. Emphasis on me. She is his anchor to humanity, constantly, and their connection even becomes romantic. They understand each other in terms of dedication to the cause and humanity slipping away. She celebrates his birthday with him, they fly together often, they go on stupid missions to destroy car dealerships together. Boy meets girl, boy becomes Hawk, girl becomes warrior. Classic love story. Surely this won't also go poorly for Tobias. Tobias also bonds with Axe, since they connect deeply on the weird outsider in the group thing. They live together in the woods, both hiding away from humanity in their own ways. Eventually, they also connect because Axe is Elfangor's kid brother, which makes him, by default, Tobias' uncle. But regardless of the family connection, they are still Jake and Marco levels of close. There's even an Andalite word for it. Shorm. It means something closer than a friend, coming from the Andalite word for tailblade. You would trust your Shorm to put their tailblade to your throat because you know that they would always have your back and never betray you. I'd argue that Axe is the best thing to happen to Tobias, since everyone else had paired off with best friends in the group, except for him, up until Axe had joined the team. Scholastic originally thought that kids wouldn't be able to connect to Tobias and Axe as much as the other kids, due to their personal conditions, a boy trapped as a hawk and an alien in the woods. So they originally showed up as narrators every 10 books. Jake, Rachel, Tobias, Cassie, Marco, Jake, Rachel, Axe, Cassie, Marco, repeat. By the second half of the series, they were in regular rotation with the others because, go figure, the story of a kid who just doesn't feel like they belong in this life, looking for a sense of purpose out there, is, shockingly, the most relatable story of all. Now, let's Sario rip back to Eric. I'll make him explain that one to you.
Come on, man. It's a time travel thing that happens whenever there's a big explosion, and just throw it on the counter. Part 4, Cassie, Killer with a Conscience. Cassie is an annoying hypocrite. Part 5, Marco the... Okay. I'm kidding. Not about her being a hypocrite, though. She's just a hypocrite with a purpose. See, Cassie is the tree-hugging horse girl who posts 20 times a day on Facebook because someone somewhere in the world did something wrong. Her role on the team is to ask, are we sure this is ethical? Which makes her a hypocrite almost immediately. I mean, they've been recruited into a war. If they do nothing, the enemy will continue to infest and enslave everyone. It's sort of like you're in the trolley problem, except if you don't pull the lever, the trolley's going to turn around and kill the one person anyway, hop off the tracks and kill you, drive to your house and kill your entire family, and then scorch the very foundations of the earth, killing every species that isn't explicitly useful for food. So, like, maybe killing that one guy is preferable, but Cassie doesn't see it that way. She was raised by veterinarians, and she spends her days caring for and treating sick or injured animals. In book number 19, while in Wolfmorph, she rips the throat out of an enemy and feels nothing. and she can't feel nothing. She is too empathetic. So she makes the difficult decision to leave the team. The other Animorphs do not take it well. Marco makes condescending jokes, Jake acts disappointed, but it's Rachel, Cassie's best friend and first to jump into a fight, mind you, who tells her off the most. Rachel, we can still be— No, we can't, she said, cutting me off. See, you've just said the whole world can drop dead so long as you, Cassie, don't have to end up turning into me. Later in that same book, Cassie gets lost in the woods with a much younger girl named Karen. And Karen has a yerk in her head. The two of them have to work together to get back to civilization, but as they travel, Cassie tries to make peace with the yerk named Aftran 942. Aftran explains that in their natural state, yerks are helpless slugs that swim around in a dark, featureless pool forever. They can't help that they evolved to be parasites any more than humans can help that they evolved to be predators. You're our meat, Aftran says. Throughout the entire book, Cassie is wrestling with her conflicting beliefs. On the one hand, yerks enslaving other races is wrong. On the other hand, killing yerks, including their host bodies who are just innocent victims in all this, is also wrong. And on the other hand, asking yerks to deny what they evolved into and live a dark, depressing life in an ugly yerk pool forever, maybe it feels the least wrong, but it doesn't feel good. She knows she can't make the warring factions stop fighting each other, but maybe she can make peace between one human and one yerk. Not everywhere, but just right here for a start. Because yeah, Cassie, that'll fix everything. Have you tried putting flour in the barrel of a Draken beam? But look, it's easy to dunk on Cassie for hoping that we can all just hug it out, and a lesser story probably would. But this isn't a lesser story. This is goddamn Animorphs, and K.A. Applegate isn't letting you off the hook that easy. That's right, I said sometimes in war you have to kill people is the easy way out. See, Aftran comes back later. The two of them come to an agreement, and Aftran promises to never again take an unwilling host. As a result, about 10 books later, in book number 29, The Sickness, the group discovers that there is now a growing yerk peace movement. Aftran was just the start. Now there are hundreds of them. Hundreds of yerks who believe that taking an unwilling host is wrong, and amazingly, some humans who are willing to be hosts in order to help them further that cause. It's not nearly enough, but it's a start. So I know that I'm spoiling a lot of the story, and it's technically your fault for not reading these books in the last 20 years like I've been telling you to do, but I really—
Hey, listen. I just came across this video. I knew there was a reason why I didn't get into Animorphs because the story goes like he was just trying to not explain because it's very complicated. But yeah, look, you can't blame somebody. It's 60 bucks. I didn't even know it was 60 books. I didn't even know it was 60 books. If you ain't a bookworm, you ain't gonna be reading all that on them books, buddy. Shoot.
encourage anyone who's interested to go back and read the series, especially to see how Cassie's story plays into the endgame, because she's not just annoying for annoying's sake. This entire series is about tough questions, and throughout it, Cassie has to make a lot of hard choices. It was technically her idea to trap David as a rat. It was her idea to recruit disabled children to fight in the war. Actually, let's talk about that.
Huh? What? Huh? Hold on, I'm taking a break. Okay, we're back.
For a second. Okay, see, towards the end of the series, the kids need to recruit more people to help them fight the war. They need people that the Yeerks haven't infested and are unlikely to infest in the future, and since Yeerks are only after able bodies that are an improvement over the alien races they have already conquered, they probably overlook any children with physical disabilities. So the Animorphs recruit a cadre of disabled children. Now, if your first reaction to that is, whoa, you can't just send disabled children into war, then I'd actually point out the word disabled isn't necessary in that sentence, but that's also what Cassie says too. It's her idea and she immediately shoots it down. Even though they'd be giving the kids the ability to morph and to fight in animal bodies, most of them would still be vulnerable in between morphs, and they'd be more likely to be hurt or killed. "We're not doing this," she says. Which is ableist as hell. Jake points out that this is their war too, and they're not incapable of making the decision about whether or not to fight. Okay, to be clear, they're not actually capable of making their own decisions, but it's because they're children, not because of any disability. They're minors, and minors can't consent to war, but I admit we're sort of past that point in the narrative. But even though she knows Jake is right...
What did it say? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Animorphs is about child soldiers.
But even though she knows Jake is right, at the very least that she shouldn't decide for someone else what they can and can't do based on her preconceived ideas about a disability, she's still never comfortable with this. But that's the role she serves in the story. She's a hypocrite. She has to be a hypocrite. The team needs a hypocrite. On the battlefield, only a hypocrite is going to ask, is this wrong? Should we be doing this? Are we the bad guys? The person who kills comfortably, the person who never second guesses themselves, the person who never has any doubts about wiping out an enemy is probably not a good person. If there comes a time when you absolutely must resort to violence, you at least want someone on your side that's going to feel bad about it. Cassie doesn't let herself or anyone else off the hook for the immoral things they sometimes have to do. As a result, she's the reason there's a Yeerk peace movement at all. Her choices don't always work out, and she very often alienates the people in her lives by sticking too closely to her beliefs. But at the end of the day, without her on the team, it would be far too easy to become the evil they're trying to destroy. Part 5. Marco the Ruthless. In the first Animorphs book, Marco very nearly takes a punch for correctly pointing out that Jake's brother Tom is a controller. I like to think that he holds a grudge about that because he spends the entire rest of the series whining. Marco is the designated comedy character who bothers the other Animorphs by making jokes at opportune and inopportune times, but more annoyingly, constantly says that we shouldn't have to do this. Which, to be fair, he's right. They're kids. Marco doesn't get a turn as the narrator until book 5, and he's the last one to really emotionally resolve to fight in the war. Up until that point, he insists we shouldn't be doing this, we shouldn't have to risk our lives, and someone else should handle it. But since everyone else is going to do it anyway...
like adults. Adults should be handling this. Y'all shouldn't be handling this at all. You're kids. You're adolescents. I don't understand how in some stories, when a child says this amongst the group, people looking at him like, why would you say that? It's too late. No, it's not. It's not too late. Y'all can still give this to someone who's more capable of handling these situations, like an adult.
That he should come along, not because he likes to feel included, but because he thinks they'd be caught or killed without him. Once again, he's kinda right. Being kinda right is actually his entire brand. See, Marco isn't just the funny one. He's the skeptical one. He's the analytical one. His mother died a couple years back, his father fell into a deep depression, and he turned to comedy as more of a coping mechanism. He's more resistant to being emotional than the other characters, and he's usually the first to figure out how something could go wrong, because he's expecting it to. I could spend a while getting into the complex psychological relationship between cynicism, emotional damage, and comedy, but I sort of already did do that a bit. After only a few missions, Marco has hit his limit. He's done. His father is already a wreck, and Marco's pretty sure that if he died too, his father would not be able to handle it. So he decides this last mission they're on right now is it. After this, he's walking. But on that mission, they get captured by Visser 3, who takes them into orbit, into the heart of the Yeerk pool ship, the most deadly, isolated, inescapable stronghold the Yeerks have. And they come face to face with one of the few beings in the galaxy that outranks their greatest enemy, Visser 1. And the host body Visser 1 occupies is Marco's mother. She's alive. Now, you might think at this point that Marco's motivation becomes clear. save his mother at all costs, even if it means staying in this deadly, dangerous war. And that's sort of what happens. Marco does decide to stay and fight, and a full half of his narrated books are either about or feature his mother. But he isn't willing to save her at all costs. Marco understands that winning the war is more important than getting what he wants. If they lose the war, he doesn't get what he wants anyway. The Yeerks take over, enslave or kill everybody, and he doesn't get to go home with his mother and have a happy family. So if it came down to saving his mother or defeating the enemy, he's the one person on that team capable of making that decision. In book number 30, The Reunion, Marco learns that the Yeerk in his mother's head has been demoted and is on the run from the Yeerk Empire. He realizes there's an opportunity to take out two of their greatest enemies in one move, even though it would kill his mother. It's a passage in this book that summarizes the way Marco thinks better than any other. People don't understand the word ruthless. They think it means mean. It's not about being mean. It's about seeing the bright, clear line that leads from A to B. The line that goes from motive to means, beginning to end. It's about seeing that bright, clear line and not caring about anything but the beautiful fact that you can see the solution. Not caring about anything else but the perfection of it. That's what had happened. I saw the way to take both Vissers down. And that's all that mattered. I couldn't do the story justice by trying to summarize it, but the short version is, for as torn as Marco feels, he still goes through with his plan. He leads his mother to her death, even intentionally trying to knock her off a cliff, no matter how much it tears him up inside. Internally, he's aching just to hear her say his name, say I love you one more time. But he knows the Yeerk in her head can't be allowed to survive this. So anyway, she does. Yeah, the serialized nature of these books kind of means that they have a lot of the same problems that TV shows have, where you can't just write out a major villain halfway through the season.
Damn!
The Yeerk who was Visser 1 and is in Marco's mother's head is still wanted by the Yeerk Empire. Marco's next book, The Proposal, intertwines with a standalone book called Visser that explores the origins of the infiltration of Earth through the lens of Visser 1's trial. During a break in the trial, Visser 1 manages to get away and call Marco, whose identity she learned at the end of Marco's last book. Visser 1 begs Marco to get his friends to come attack the Yeerk pool, to prove a point, win a political battle with Visser 3, and in doing so, save his mother's life. And Marco tells her to blow off. It's not a trap, I whispered urgently. I know. Like you said, you know me. If you wanted me dead, it would be easy. You could take me, infest me, and have all of my friends within a few hours. So you need me. This is about your little personality conflict with Visser 3. You're desperate, but you won't give me up to Visser 3 because you hate him more than you hate us. I almost choked. From almost no information, he had painted a very cogent picture of the situation. Then I almost laughed. I once thought you were too soft, too gentle. Yeah, well, things change. She does eventually convince Marco to help, and as a show of appreciation, she allows a little bit of his real mother to come through. And Marco tells her to eat shit again! Marco, your mother loves you, I said. But if I'd been expecting him to soften, I got the opposite result. I know my mother loves me, Visser, he said. And let me make one thing clear. There's no deal between us, you and me, Yeerk. I'll kill you for what you've done to her and to my dad. Count on that.
Damn!
Shortly after, they storm the Yeerk pool, get Marco's mother alone, and order Visser 1 to leave her head. When the Yeerk refuses, Marco orders Axe to put his tail blade to his mother's throat. Either the Yeerk leaves now, or he will remove her head from her shoulders. This is a book for teenagers.
Zom, what the hell you got me listening to? What the hell do you got me lit? How long is this video? Because I gave it a break. So add on to the other one. Hold on, real quick. I just want to put this into preference. It's been 43. This is about to be an hour long video. This video is about to be hour long. Jesus Christ. That man literally said, yeah, I don't care. Either you leave or both of y'all going.
The Yeerk refuses to believe that he would willingly kill his own mother. To which Marco replies, "You know what it says on the New Hampshire license plates? My mom knows. We talked about it. At the time, we thought it was kind of corny, but then the more we thought about it, it wasn't corny at all. It was inevitable. I accessed the memories. Live free or die. Live free or die. My mother walks out of here a free woman. Or she dies." Jesus Christ, Marco. I related a lot to Marco growing up, and it's not just because he's the funny one, though it helped. Marco understood something that I had never seen in a fictional character by that age. He understood that ruthless and evil aren't always synonyms.
If real recognizes real was a person. If real recognizes real was a person. I'm sorry, I don't mean pausing, but goddamn, that line was cold, bro. That was cold. That was cold.
Being willing to make hard choices in service of a worthwhile goal is not inherently wrong just because the phrase, "the ends don't justify the means," exists. Cassie's story might rightfully point out that no one is off the hook for the consequences of their compromised choices. But Marco's story points out that they're not off the hook for inaction and moral feebleness either. If the end result of not killing his mother in those circumstances is that she stays enslaved and kills and enslaves countless others, then what good was sparing her life? If the end result of your moral choice is still injustice, slavery, and death, then you have to ask yourself, what's the point of making the moral choice in the first place? The series never gives a concrete answer, by the way. It never fully sides with Cassie or Marco, because life isn't that clean. Part 6.
It's not.
Axe. Foolish Heirist. Whoever gets to play Axe is going to have a blast.
A joke. I see.
I say that, but there's a decent chance that whoever gets to play Axe, whose full name, by the way, is Aximili Escaruth. Hey, Zach, how do you say his name again?
So I pronounce it Aximili Esgarith Istville. The TV show says Aximili Esgarith Istville. KA has yet to give an official pronunciation. Though she also says Elfangor instead of Elfangor. I'm on the fence with her about that one.
Yeah, that. Axe is what's known as an heirist, or basically a cadet in the Andalite military. He's the younger brother of Elfangor, and during the battle over Earth, he was left behind on the Andalite dome ship. The dome ship crashes into the ocean where he's stranded for several books until the Animorphs can come get him. So there's a distinct possibility that if they don't choose to change that story, that he might not end up in the movie at all. Which is a shame, because we'll miss such great things as Axe creating a hybrid human morph out of the 4 remaining human Animorphs that's weirdly attractive but also off-putting. Axe going absolutely bonkers go nuts when he discovers the human sense of taste and starts stuffing his face with every type of food he can get his hands on, and also cigarette butts. And Axe becoming uncontrollably fascinated with every sound the human mouth can make, playing with each new sound like it's a toy. I know Animorphs has a reputation for being dark, but I think Axe brings a levity to the series that would be noticeably lacking with his absence. For example, Axe is uncontrollably addicted to Cinnabon, once eating an entire tray of the things because he was, quote, not aware of the specifications for human stomachs. Andalites in general are so obsessed with the human sense of taste that many of them come to Earth specifically to try Krispy Kreme donuts.
Krispy Kreme.
Wow.
Krispy Kreme.
Krispy Kreme!
No, 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 we are not doing that again. It is Cinnabon or nothing. My Andalite don't want none unless you got buns. Zach wrote that joke.
Wow.
I want to make that 100% clear. Zach gets credit for that joke. I do not. Good? Let's move on. Axe's fish out of water story, which I think actually happens to them once. It's not just played for laughs. Early stories, and even the Animorphs Bible used to pitch the story to Scholastic, describe the Andalites as the good guys of the galaxy. And of course they are! They fight the evil Yeerks abroad the galaxy, liberating the planets that they enslave.
Planets!
Why wouldn't they be the good guys? Did I mention this series was released in the 90s? Well, most of the Animorphs go through a disillusionment phase when they start to figure out that the Andalites aren't going to swoop in and save the day at the last minute. It's Axe who's hit hardest by this because he grew up in Andalite society. He joined the Andalite military, was trained as a warrior, and believes that fighting and even dying for his people is a noble cause. His role is to serve his prince, who he can always trust to do the right thing. In fact, you remember that earlier bit where I was talking about Jake giving Axe orders that make him feel uncomfortable? For a while, Axe believed that the problem was not that princes could be bad, but that humans were the problem. But Andalite culture is arrogant and isolationist. One of their most somber laws is Ciro's kindness, which specifically prohibits Andalites from sharing technology or secrets with any other race. Named after Prince Ciro, the first Andalite to make contact with the Yeerk homeworld, he taught them about space travel, he shared technology and secrets with them, he trusted them, and they betrayed him for it.
Wow.
Prince Ciro is the reason that the Yeerk Empire is loose in the galaxy. So Axe, cut off from his people, but also aware of the dire consequences of sharing technology with another race, keeps a lot of secrets from the Animorphs. And they're not light secrets either. For example, during an early mission, the Animorphs take out a device called the Kandrona, which is a sci-fi thing that generates nourishing Kandrona rays that Yeerks need to swim in every 3 days in order to survive. While a few high-ranking controllers would be able to make a trip to the mothership in order to feed, the Animorphs expect that most hosts are going to be free of their Yeerks in a short time. Free hosts would mean witnesses. It means people telling the story. It wouldn't be just one nut job that we can all ignore. The public would know. The Animorphs wouldn't be alone in this fight anymore. But then, Jake and Axe witness a known controller execute the host of a Yeerk that was on the brink of starvation. So Axe grudgingly reveals the truth. Rather than let a host go free when its Yeerk dies, the Yeerks will execute the host. By taking out the Kandrona, the Animorphs signed the death sentences for an unknown number of human hosts, and they had no idea it would happen. But Axe did. Jake's brother Tom is a controller. Jake didn't take too kindly to this information being withheld. Axe takes another opportunity to side with his people when they're briefly...
So if they kill the Yeerk that lives inside, that infests the host... Damn.
Group with a crew of Andalites off-world for reasons we will throw on the counter. Finally back with his people, Axe hopes that he can once again belong. He abandons the Animorphs to serve the Andalites that he's fallen in with. The Animorphs were good to him, but these are his kind. But Axe is betrayed. The leader of the Andalite group they found is a Yeerk ally. Not infested or enslaved, there's no Yeerk in his head. He simply chooses to sabotage a spacecraft, kill some Andalites, and plans to hand the Animorphs over to Visser 3. Nothing special about it, just garden variety betrayal. Axe doesn't expect this though. It shatters the illusion in his mind that the Andalite military he's devoted his life to is incorruptible. That some Andalites would side with the Yeerks, kill their own kind. Not because they were enslaved, but because they chose to. It's unthinkable to Axe. While the reader might come to this series distrustful of human authority figures, the series gives us an alien race that we are repeatedly told is just inherently good. That's the story we're kind of used to hearing. Elves are good, orcs are bad. In fact, D&D even promised they'd stop doing that. But through Axe's story, we get to feel that disillusion. Axe believed his people were good. We were told his people are good. But they're just as corruptible as everyone else. It's a lesson Axe keeps in mind the next time Andalites visit Earth. A group of washed-up Andalites land, claiming they're on a mission to assassinate Visser 3. Axe leaves the Animorphs once more, following another unknown Andalite captain, but with a bit more suspicion this time. After hacking their ship's files, he learns that they're all officially listed as dead. they're not expected to return from this mission. They're
some kind of suicide squad.
Their plan is not to assassinate one Yeerk. They're here to release a virus that would kill all of them, very likely humans too. Genocide. Raise one planet to save them all. But like I said, Axe learns. He never actually left the Animorphs, and in fact snuck them in on his own body as fleas. They're able to intercept and stop the genocide. One of the Andalites in that crew is shocked that Axe wouldn't immediately trust them, that he would disobey the Andalite military hierarchy. It was all a deception. You misled us. You lied to your own people. I shook my head. No. I have learned something, Estrid. These are my people. Anyone who believes in freedom, anyone who resists tyranny, anyone who pursues peace is my people. Andalite, Hork-Bajir, or human. It would be easy to simplify Axe's story into a Spockian, learn what it means to be human tale, and man, I leaned hard into that in that impression there. But what makes his story special is the way he transforms from an ardent believer in the way things are to a person who is capable of thinking for himself. By the end, Axe is able to form alliances not based on affiliation or race, but by ideology, common ground, and the relationships he's built. As a teenager, I still had a lot of disillusionment phases to go through, but having a template like this made it a little bit easier. If you've ever heard someone say, Animorphs radicalized me, this is the kind of thing they mean. It never shied away from telling morally gray stories, representing the real, nuanced, ugly truth of the world, even as it found hope in it. Maybe the Andalites can't be trusted. Maybe no entire species can be trusted. But there are some people who can.
Right.
Epilogue. Okay, but what about all that weird stuff? Okay, so that was a lot.
It
We got
was.
through it. That wasn't so bad, right?
No.
Yeah, come on.
That was cool.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
So what's the counter at right now?
At 10.
Oh. That doesn't seem like a lot. What am I missing? Oh, that's right, I forgot to mention. The Howlers, a race of lava monsters that kill because it's fun. The Helmacrons, a diminutive species that shrinks people down. Lyrans, a race of mind-reading amphibian creatures? The Taxons, who are so ravenously, cannibalistically hungry that they will eat themselves. That time that Mr. 3 spent a lot of time and killed a lot of people because he wanted to secure an Andalite toilet. Elfangor invented the Windows operating system. Krayak, the other evil immortal god creature that looked like an eyeball attached to a machine thing. Mr. 3's brother is a cannibal who survives by eating other Yeerks through his human host body. The time that they get a morphing disease and Rachel accidentally poops out a crocodile. There's like a bunch of time travel. I really can't explain how weird this series is, how much stuff just comes out of nowhere, and how some of it doesn't tie together at all. Like, I seriously can't explain it. Wait, yes I can. I'm gonna do another one of these.
All right. That being made, being that as it made, this gonna be a long ass video. So, but you know what? Y'all already knew this. The zombie, you already knew this when you had sent this to me, and the two other parts. This ain't gonna be all in one video. I'm gonna let you know right now, because that was a lot to intake on my mind. So, yeah, if y'all enjoyed this, if you want part 2, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Go and watch the original video of this dude. He made this video 3 years ago. I don't know the update on the Animorphs movie, if it's still coming out or if it got canceled. I don't know. Like I said, it's been 3 years. I haven't heard anything since. I haven't heard anything about it at all. So yeah. Let me know in the comments down below how you feel about Animorphs, how you feel about what's been said in this video, and more so, does anyone have any information on this Animorphs movie? Does anyone have any information on it? I'm lost in the dark. I'm saying I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't know. Okay, so before anyone is saying that I misinterpret or misspells, I'm just listening and going about this how I'm interpreting it. Apparently, it was a movie that was supposed to come out in 2020. It is 2023. About to be 24. So, yeah. This has been Master of Sakurai. I'm gonna see y'all again next time. I'm out. Peace.